learn to be paid for your existence and not your time. In my first book, It's About Damn Time, that came out in 2020, I said that money attracts money, but what if you don't have money? You become money. How do you become money? By learning as much as you can, because no one can take that away from you. So stacking your information, your research, and then your skills, and you become more and more valuable. You can just see the dollar bill stacking as you grow. So when you take those skills and that knowledge, that information, that then becomes wisdom, and you combine that with a growing reputation for doing what you say you'll do, showing up, being on time, literally and figuratively. So then you become someone who's valued by who you are and not so much how many hours you're doing something. That's the biggest takeaway, actually. I'm going to call it. It's the one that helped me go from being broke, from sleeping on the floor of the San Francisco airport just a few years ago, not knowing when I was going to eat next, not knowing where I was going to sleep next, to generating and raising tens of millions of dollars in just a few years. It's because I learned who I am and what I can become is way more valuable than the hours that I can put into something. When I go on these book stops for my new book, Your First Million, I'll usually ask the room, how many people believe they can be a millionaire? And do you know that usually only half the room raises their hand? And I ask them, if they're not raising their hand, why didn't you raise your hand? And most of them will say, it just seems so far away. It just seems so far away from what I know and what I've done in the past, or what anyone I know has done before. And what I've learned after talking to so many millionaires and working with so many is that, believe me, if you're watching this video, you can be a millionaire. There is no genius millionaire that I have met, at least, that has figured out something that the rest of us can't figure out, right? The skills needed to become a millionaire can actually be taught. Now, that's something I didn't know for most of my life, is that it's not all about luck. It's not all about being born into a legacy of wealth. It's not all about who you know or who you are. It's about dissecting the hundreds, the thousands, and the millions of millionaires that are in the world and figuring out what they did to get there, and then distilling that into a step-by-step process. Here's why everybody's not a millionaire. Because sure, I can teach you, but most people won't act on it. They'll read it or watch videos or watch a video like this, and they'll get inspired or find something to be interesting or compelling, and then they'll simply stop. They won't go further. The people who act on it, the people who take the risk and take the chances and experiment, those are the people who go on to greatness. And I know that you can be one of those people. So someone asked me, how on earth did you get paid $50,000 for 45 minutes of your time? And I told them I didn't get paid $50,000 for 45 minutes of my time. I got paid $50,000 for 40 years of my time, for 40 years of lived experience, of lessons learned, of putting out good energy into the world, planting seeds, stacking my skills, using those skills for good, and then learning how to communicate what I'd learned. That's what they were paying me for. They were paying me for my existence. And that's a major thing I've learned about millionaires, both talking to them and working with them and now becoming one, is that you value your time. Think of the person who is top of their game, the LeBrons, the Beyoncés, all of the tech heroes, all the people who you want to be like. Maybe it's somebody at your church, maybe it's somebody who you know in real life, a teacher. The thing about them is that for years, most of them have been obsessed with the thing they're known for. And that obsession has fueled them. I use myself again as an example. When I was broke, I was homeless. I was in Pearland, Texas. This was in the early 2010s. I was in my early 30s. I hadn't figured out anything. I was so broke, but I would still learn something every single day about venture capital, of all things. I was happy for it to be a Tuesday because we had free chili at the hotel we were staying in. But I was also going back to my room that I shared with my mom, who was in her 60s, and I was looking online. Thankfully, I had a laptop, and I was researching venture capital. I was talking to founders. I was interviewing founders and asking them what they needed, what their biggest pain point was. I was reading all the trade papers and listening to interviews and podcasts. I was obsessed for probably a decade in order to make Backstage happen. But listen, we are the largest fund for underrepresented, underestimated founders by the number of portfolio companies in the country. That's what my obsession has created. LeBron is obsessed with basketball. Luka is obsessed with basketball. Beyonce is obsessed with an excellence, a quality of performance that none of us can really quite understand. They're the top. They're the best at what they do. So if you feel like you're obsessed with something, and I mean something, not someone, if you feel like you're obsessed with something, embrace that. People may make fun of you and say, oh, you're talking about that again. But that could be the thing that makes you wealthy because of that obsession. So lean into that, embrace it. Make sure you're paying attention because I'm going to let you know my 3-step framework that will help you make your first $1,000 and get you started. So the framework is teach, show, do. Teach. You could teach a course. You could have something on social where you're teaching people how to do something that's in your expertise. This can be something that you offer for free in exchange for email addresses, which helps you build your mailing list, which will be very important in the future. Or this is something that you sell for some price. You could sell it for $10, $50, $100, or even more, depending on the value that people get, the transformation they have, and the effort that goes into this course. So that is on the teach side of things. The next one is show. So maybe you've taught how to start knitting, for instance. When you get to the show side of things, this is now one-on-one or group coaching. So for instance, if you taught someone in a $10 course how to thread a needle or how to get started in crocheting, something like that. I don't know how to do it, so you're teaching me. Then in the show section of this, you could actually say, for $30 or for $60 or for $150, you can get on a Zoom with me live for 30 to 60 minutes and I'll walk you through the pieces. I'll show you exactly how to do it and I'll work with you to make sure that you get to the transformation that you want to have. So you've taught and now you can show either one-on-one or in a group setting. The third is do. So you can do it for them. So you've taught them, you've shown them, but what if they just want you to do it for them and create? You can knit the sweater or do the thing that they wanted to do for them and you could sell that to them. You can apply this to almost anything. Think about any sort of HR, coaching, all of that takes you through. Now this is pretty advanced when you start to really get into it. So what I would do is I would select one of those things. Can you teach yourself, for instance, to edit video? If you can do that, spend several hours learning how to do that, get better and better each week. You can start off by maybe teaching people online how to edit videos as a beginner. Then you can show them and maybe do a consulting one-on-one with people. And then eventually you can edit for other people. Or you could start with the do it for them side. So maybe you can charge someone $500 to edit videos for them and have a monthly rate where they go back to you each and every time. So if we're trying to go from zero, from nothing, people come to me all the time, Arlan, I have nothing. I don't know where to start. This is how you start.